So the fundamental theorem of algebra, all it really says, it sounds really fancy, but all it says really is if you look at the degree being the highest exponent, that's how many solutions there are. And so I've already taught you that before, but now you know there's a fancy theorem name that goes with it. So the fundamental theorem of algebra says that whatever the highest degree is, that's how many solutions there are. They could be imaginary, they could be real, they could be repeated. And so we have something to the fifth power. Fifth power, fourth power, third power, second power, first power constant. And last week what I taught you to do is first to go graph it, see if you could find any of the solutions, and if you found, how many solutions are you looking for?
5.
You're looking for 5 solutions, right? So just like last week, if we could graph that and get all 5 by graphing, then we're done. So let's check it out. X to the 5th minus x to the 4th minus 3x cubed plus 3x squared. Be careful when you're typing this in because that's where kids make mistakes. Minus 4x plus 4 and a 0. Now, so if it crosses 5 times, I could just write down my 5 answers and I'm good because I found all 5 of them. Let's check it out. 1, 2, 3. Oh, so there's 3 real solutions, right? So if there's 3 real solutions and it's to the 5th power, what does that mean about the other 2? They're imaginary. Okay, and imaginaries come in pairs. And so, just like last week, you're going to look at that and go, okay, I'm going to at least write down my real solutions. And those were -2, 1, and 2. So I have my real solutions. And then last week what we did was we went and we looked at that polynomial and we factored it. How do you factor x to the 5th power? How do you factor something to the 5th power? No, that would be like if you were distributing. I never taught you how to factor to the 5th power. And in fact, I'm not even sure how to factor that. Okay, last week I taught you how to factor to the 4th power when it's like a quadratic, how to factor to a cubic when it's perfect cubes, how to factor when you have a GCF, there is no GCF. And so that's why some polynomials don't factor. And so when they don't factor, you have to have a backup plan. And the backup plan would be, we know 3 real solutions. So if I could take those out, have we learned a way to take something out? How to divide something out? Yeah, last week we learned how to divide things out, right? We learned long division and synthetic division. So I'm going to take -2, take it out of there, that'll drop it down to the 4th power. Take out a 1, that'll drop it down to the 3rd power. Take out a 2, that'll drop it down to the 2nd. And once I'm down to the 2nd, I can use factoring or quadratic formula to get those 2 imaginary that I can't see. Okay, so I'm going to have to the 5th power when I take out 3, 5 minus 3 is 2, which is a quadratic. So -2, what would the factor of -2 be? If the solution's -2, that's where it crosses the x, what's the factor? X plus 2. And the factor of 1 would be x minus 1. And the factor of 2 would be x minus 2. So if you choose to do long division, you're going to divide out x plus 2, then divide out x minus 1, and then divide out x minus 2 if you like long division better. For this class, I'm just going to show you synthetic since I've already shown you long division. In long division, you would take out a -2, a 1, and a 2, right? So let's do synthetic real fast. I'm going to take out -2 first, drop down the coefficients of 1, -1, -3, 3, -4, and 4. And then the first step of synthetic is you bring down the first term, then you multiply. -2 times 1 is -2. And then you add. -1 plus -2 is -3. And then you multiply. -2 times -3 is 6. -3 plus 6, 3. -2 times 3, -6. 3 plus -6, -3. -2 times -3, -4 plus 6, 2. -2 times 2, -4. 4 plus -4, 0. Remember that last number is your remainder. This has to be 0. If you get anything besides 0, then that means that your 0 wasn't correct or you messed up here in your synthetic. Okay, because we saw it cross at -2, we saw it cross at 1, and we saw it cross at 2. So when I take out a -2, you should be getting your 0 remainder. If you don't, then you messed up. Okay? And so if this is your remainder, this is your constant. That's your x squared, your x cubed, and your x to the 4th. Right? And then just like the quiz we had last week, you're going to put this number in front of each one, right? You get 1x to the 4th minus 3x cubed plus 3x squared minus 3x plus 2. So I took out a -2. And the kid asked me in first block, they said, does it matter which order you take them out in? And it doesn't. If you want to do 2 first, and then 1, and then -2, or maybe you want to do 1, 2, and then -2, just as long as you take all 3 out to drop the 5th power down to the 2nd power. So we took out -2, let's take out 1 next, just because it's in the next one in line. Drop down my coefficients, 1, -3, 3, -3, and 2. Do synthetic again. Bring down the first term. Multiply. 1 times 1 is 1. -3 plus 1 is -2. 1 times -2 is 3 plus -2, 1. 1 times 1, -3 plus 1. 1 times -2, and 2 plus -2 is 0. And you want a remainder of 0. If you don't get a remainder of 0, you messed up. That's my remainder, that's my constant, that's my x squared, that's my x cubed. So I get 1x cubed plus x squared, or 1x squared, same thing, plus x minus 2. So I took out a -2, I took out a 1. So we're almost to the 2nd power, we're to the 3rd power. So I still need to take out. Ooh, good catch, I'm glad you caught that. That should be a -2. Good catch. Because, if I wrote down the wrong number, everything else would be wrong, right? You're right. So this should be a -2x squared. Good catch. So now I already took out -2. I took out a 1. I'm going to also take out a 2. Bring down my coefficient, 1, negative 2, 1, negative 2. Now I would have found my mistake in the next problem because my remainder would not have been 0, and I'd have to look up here and see where I messed up, right? Bring down your first term, 1. 2 times 1 is negative 2 plus 2. 2 times 0, 1 plus 0. 2 times 1, negative 2 plus 2, 0. So had I not fixed that, then that would have messed up this, and I would have got it like a remainder of 7 or something like that. So this is my remainder. That's my constant. That's my x. That's my x squared. Okay, I ran out of room here, so sometimes when I'm doing my homework, I like to make room. So this becomes 1x squared plus 0x. You don't need to write down 0x. So it'll just be plus 1. Does anybody know how to factor that? You could use a quadratic formula. A would be 1. B would be, there is no x term, so B would be 0. And then C would be 1. So using A1, B0, C1, you could plug it in the quadratic, and it'll still give you the same answer. But I look at that, I notice perfect square with the plus. And instead of wasting my time on the quadratic formula, I could do what instead? Do what? Factor. And what does that factor into? X plus 1i, and x minus 1i. And then there's my imaginary. What's the opposite of plus 1i? Negative 1i. And the opposite of negative 1i? Okay. I would say at this point, because it's to the 5th power, you should write 5 solutions, or, and list them out. What were the 5 solutions? Negative 2, 1, 2, negative I, and I.